Hello.
Hi. Yeah.
Should we start with questions?
Yeah.
What else are we going to do?
No.
I want to say anything. Do you want to sing a song?
Io volevo chiedervi, qualche anno fa Matthew McFadden, che ha recitato i Tre Moschettieri, ha detto che la parte più divertente di questi film in costume non sono le spade, il mantello, quello che diceva lui in conferenza stampa, ma recitare su tacchi alti. E quindi...
Matthew McFadden, who
Amazing, wonderful man.
said that the fun part when he did these movies is not being dressed in cloak and dagger, but acting on high heels.
Yes. Yeah, what are you on about in this movie or?
No, in Tre Moschettieri.
In the Three Musketeers.
And what was the question? Just if I
No,
agree with
yeah,
it.
come out of that.
Yes, the challenge was definitely the whatever those shoes are called. I don't know. They're like boots, but they have yeah. And we were working on cobblestone streets, so it was incredibly difficult. And in fact, Ray Stevenson had a knee operation because of the fighting under the cobblestones and the heels. So yeah, musketeer knee.
Una curiosità, il film si chiude annunciando un sequel di fatto, o forse una trilogia o forse una nuova saga.
Announcing a sequel on the trilogy, the French movie saga.
Will there be one? Is it? Yeah, I mean the potential there is definitely yeah.
Cioè sei già sotto contratto e questo devi dire.
Is there a contract already?
Yeah. But it has to work. This one has to be a success before we can move forward. You know, everything depends on.
E che effetto fa passare da essere l'uccisore del drago, quello che può uccidere Smaug, a essere il figlio del drago?
What does it feel like to go from being the dragon killer, the one that kills Smaug, to the one who could be the dragon?
Yeah, the irony was not lost. I was very aware of that. It's a funny thing to actually be killing a dragon in one movie and then have a dragon on my chest for the second. Yeah, I mean, it's very weird. But luckily the characters are very, very different, so I didn't worry too much about the comparison being made, apart from the obvious dragon comparison.
Io volevo sapere se era un fan del personaggio e se aveva visto i precedenti, le centinaia di film fatti prima su Dracula e come ha lavorato sul trasformare questo Dracula in un supereroe.
What did you do to transform this Dracula into a superhero? So what was the work behind that?
Well, I've seen lots of Dracula movies. Yeah, they've been throughout my whole life. I've been aware of them, and I've liked some, and I've not liked other ones. But yeah, even cartoons when I was a child, there was a Count Dracula. It was a duck. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And Sesame Street, Count Dracula. You know, Dracula. It's a character for all ages. Obviously, depending on how old you are, it depends on what the character is to each one. But it's a fascinating thing that it's interpreted so many times, and it's wonderful. And what was the second part of the question?
Come ha lavorato sul trasformare in realtà questo Dracula in un supereroe?
The transformation.
Oh, yes.
Into a superhero.
Yeah, well, interestingly, I mean, I never looked at him as a superhero. I've never really thought that he was a superhero. He has superhuman powers, which I can see where the similarity lies. But as a character, he's more of a man struggling to survive and using power that he has no control over, and he slowly manages to control and wrangle these powers to use them to his advantage. But I don't see him as a man who goes flying around and lifting up bridges and saving things like that. I think he just uses, they're quite primitive. They're quite primitive powers that he has, but they do sort of hark to the more superhero that we know nowadays. I see that.
What it means to go through this transformation to become a princess.
Yeah, è giunta pronta a farsi immolare.
Princess would not hesitate to sacrifice herself.
It was actually so much fun to do the whole transformation for this project because one of our kind of main inspirations, well, my main inspirations was Robin Wright in Princess Diaries. Princess Bride. And so, wait a second. So Daniel Phillips, who was our hair and makeup designer, created this long wig for me to wear in the film. So I have hair all the way down to my bones, and it's pretty amazing. And then Nyla Dixon, who designed all of our costumes, did a brilliant job of creating all of these very classic romantic silhouettes. I especially loved the dress that I fall in with the long red sleeves. I mean, there's so much kind of, it's very iconic, and there's so much meaning behind the costume, but at the same time, it's just so beautiful. And then, of course, I worked as a dialect coach, worked on my British accent, my British RP, and then we all did a lot of rehearsals together. So there was a lot. There's a lot of work that kind of went into it.
Noi ci chiedevamo prima perché una principessa rumena dovrebbe avere l'accento britannico, però
They were wondering why a Romanian princess should speak with a British accent.
I mean, that wasn't my decision. But, it's something, I think it really speaks to the way that films are made nowadays and where they're sold. Accents and dialects in a film are almost always decided by producers because it's up to them to sell the film afterwards. So they want to have it in a dialect where they feel they can sell to, X many countries, that it won't have to be dubbed, that it won't have to be, you won't have to have subtitles. So it's really their decision, and I don't really know the exact politics of film distribution. So, I can't really speak to it in detail, but usually they'd want something standard that fades into the background so that it doesn't take over the performance, and it becomes more about the emotions than it is about the dialect or the accent. That's just the way it is.
Ho fatto una qualche ricerca particolare per interpretare questo personaggio di una principessa del 1400.
Did you have to do some sort of search and research as to how a 15th century princess would central be?
Well, it's interesting because Gary really wanted me to kind of fight all the temptation to be a cliche kind of idea of what a princess was back in those days. I think he really looked at my storyline and the storyline with our son Ingress to find a way to inject a lot of lightness and almost contemporary energy. So it was very intentional that the scenes in the bedroom before we were all getting ready for bed, and there's all the chaos, and the scenes where Vlad and I are having intimate moments together and we're speaking very much as equals. He wanted it to have a contemporary feeling and not just seem like we were trying to access something that was of the time, because ultimately when people go to the movies, they sit down and they want to feel like they can connect to the characters on screen, and I didn't want women to feel alienated by the notion that I was a woman from another time. So I actually tried to fight kind of all of the historical placement of a princess of that time and try and make her seem a little more down to earth.
Ha già un'idea di come sarà, visto che Luke ci ha detto che avete già filmato il contratto per il sequel, se questo film andrà bene, come sarà la Mina invece del secondo film?
Do you really portray as new Mina in the second movie? How do you portray her?
Well, I don't know, because
You have no script.
I have no, I don't know. I really like the way that we ended the first film. When we shot the original, when we shot the film, the epilogue wasn't a part of the movie. That was something that we shot after the film was made. It was something that they added on afterwards. And I thought it was really cool because it made our storyline seem more, well, less tragic, and I thought it was really cool to kind of meet them in today's, in contemporary London, and who knows where they'll go with the next one if they choose to make another film. I think that the whole point of the epilogue delivers the message of the film that love can transcend time and mortality, and I think that because of that message, we could really go back in time, go forward in time, we could end up anywhere.